So you're going to need to weigh out 0.5 grams of sugar, 0.5 grams of Epsom salt, you're going to need to weigh your penny, and 0.5 grams of baking soda. Okay. So I'm fortunate enough to have a lab, so I can get little weigh boats. So you may want to sit there and get a couple of sheets of paper and then rip them into small sizes. So that it'll be able to sit on your scale. You don't want to put chemicals directly on your scale. You want to sit there and, as I said, take a small piece of paper, kind of rip it up so that it'll be able to be used as a weigh boat for you. Next time I'll talk them into adding weigh boats. Now, for the first set of experiments, what we're going to be doing is looking at whether or not we're looking at ionic compounds and then also metallic bonds, I should say, ionic bonds, metallic bonds, and covalent bonds. So we're looking at 3 different types of bonds, right? So the penny going to represent our metallic bond. Sugar is going to be representing our covalent bond. The Epsom salt is going to be representing our ionic bond, and the baking soda is also going to be representing ionic. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to label my paper so that I can use the same pieces of paper to sit there and weigh my samples, so I'm not constantly reweighing again. And so we're going to be doing this experiment a couple of times. One, we're going to be doing it in the context of water. One, we're going to be doing it in the context of heat. And then the last time we're going to be doing it is mixing the solutions that we have together. Okay. So as I said, I'm going to label my paper. So it says Epsom salt. Baking soda. Sugar. And our penny. So I'm going to take my scale. I'm going to make sure that it's turned on, and then I'm going to change the mode, put it on a flat surface, change the mode to grams, make sure it's in grams. And that's G, not GN, grams. I'm going to take my weigh paper. I'm actually going to fold it in quarters. So like this. Okay. So it kind of has a little bit of a butt. I'm then going to put my weigh paper onto my scale. Let me stop with the whiteboard and I'll go to the main screen. And then I'm going to tare my scale. The way that I tare my scale, I'm going to use the on button because it acts as a tare, but I won't hold it too long because if you hold it too long, it turns the scale off. Okay, so then my scale should zero. I don't know if you guys can actually see that being zeroed. Okay, so I'm going to start with weighing my penny. And I'm going to record the weight on a piece of paper. Okay, so my penny weighs 2.53 grams. Okay. So you guys also should have conical tubes. So these are your 15 mil conical tubes. You guys are going to want to use these today. So I'm going to do the same thing with my sugar paper. Just going to fold it so I have little quads going on there so you guys can see. Then I'm going to put it on a scale. I'm also going to tare it. It should be at zero. If it's already at zero, then you're good to go. If not, then you want to tare it. So in your kit, you should also have, this here is a spatula. So you guys should also have a little spatula in your kit. Let's see. It looks like a Slurpee spoon. Okay. So then I'm going to take my sugar. We talked about the chemical formula for sugar here after we get everything ready. And I'm going to weigh a 0.5 gram sugar. Okay, now when you're weighing chemicals, I know we're working with sugar, it's not going to be a big deal. You don't want to sit there and put your spatula back in that chemical. So you also want to clean up your spatula after each chemical because you don't want to carry anything over. Okay, so if you happen to go over what you plan to, you want to just dispose of those chemicals instead of putting them back in, because then you also take a risk of contaminating your original source. And we don't want to do that. So I have another little, I actually have a weigh boat that I'm using that I'm going to use for just garbage. So I overshot by a little bit. Okay. So I have my sugar. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my sugar in the conical tube. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the fact that I had folded my paper to help me guide the sugar into the conical tube without getting it all over me or all over the table. And I should have my glasses on. Sorry about that. So I have my sugar in my conical tube. I didn't get it all over my table, so I'm pretty happy. Okay. Now, the problem is that we only have so many conical tubes to work with. We have two of the small ones. So we're gonna have to recycle this as well too. So we're gonna use, we're gonna simply label it so that we can't get it mistaked. And I'm just gonna use something that I can wipe off later on. So like maybe a pencil that I can erase it. And so then I'm just gonna write sugar on there. Okay, so I know that that's sugar. So my other conical tube, I'm actually gonna put Epsom salt. Okay, so here's my Epsom salt. Let me go clean up my spatula. So I'm gonna rinse it and dry it off so that I can actually use it, my Epsom salt, for the next one. Okay, it's all rinsed and dried. So take my Epsom salt paper, I'm gonna fold it the way that I did everything else. Okay, so I'm also gonna tear it. Okay. So again, I'm gonna put a half a gram, so 0.5 grams. And then I'm gonna put that in the conical tube. Okay. So now that I got these both in the conical tube, I'm gonna get a little cup of water so that I can add 5 mils of water. This is 5 milliliters of water to each of my compounds. So Epsom salt. Okay, so I have both of them labeled with my little pencil, although you may not be able to see it because it's so white, but they're both labeled. So I'm able to distinguish between the two. So I can sit there and take a clear picture of what's going to happen with each one. Okay. Let me go get a cup of water. So in chemistry, because we want to sit there and do experiments that we know aren't going to be affected by outside forces, so we would want to use distilled water or deionized water. Distilled water or deionized water is basically water that has all of the minerals taken out of it. Where tap water has a lot of minerals and it also has, it's fluorinated. It has fluorine in it. And so these could actually have effects on our experiments. But for right now, you guys are at home, so we're just going to make the best of what we can do. So most of you guys have tap water. So that's what we're going to be using. We're going to be using tap water. Okay. So I'm going to take the tap water and I'm going to add 5 mils to my sample, to each of my samples. Okay. So you can see that roughly 5 mils. So I'm going to put my cap on there, and then I'm just going to shake. All right, and this is added onto the Epsom salt. Okay. And again, my tap water is pretty cold, so. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is record observations and take a couple of pictures. Okay. Since I have my camera available, let's see. I'm going to label this Epsom salt so I remember what it is. And I can see that outcome. Interesting. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the sugar. Going to add 5 ml of water. Okay. So you guys can kind of see it. Okay, put the cap back on. Then I'm going to mix it. And record my observations. Okay. Okay, so I have my observations recorded. Okay, so since I don't have enough conical tubes, I'm going to take my conical tubes. I'm going to take them to the sink, pour the sugar out, pour the Epsom salt out, run it with a lot of water, and then I'm going to add the baking soda. Okay, so I'm going to I have both of them cleaned up, just rinse them out nicely with some water, some tap water, And then I'm just going to dry them out so that I don't have any water in there when I start the next set of experiments. So I'm just going to take my paper towel and just kind of dry it out. And I'm going to clean my spatula again. Okay. Okay, so I have my clean spatula. Now I have my baking soda. Fold the paper. Half again. Quarters. Put it on the scale. Okay. Okay, also going to weigh a half a gram. Then I'm going to put my baking soda into the conical tube. Then I'm going to add up to 5 mils. Okay, so I added my 5 mils. And then I'm going to put the cap on it and make observations. Okay, so I'm going to keep my baking soda because I'm going to use it later for something else. So I'm going to label this guy now with the baking soda, make sure I have it labeled. Set it aside. Okay, so now I have my penny. All right. So what I'm going to do with my penny is I'm going to take a little cup and drop it into the water. Okay. And I'm going to record any observations that I see. Right. Okay. So then I can wait a few minutes and I can see pretty much nothing's happening with the penny. So I'm just going to go ahead, put it aside for right now. And then I'll start weighing my samples again. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pi 10. What I've done, I got a small pi 10, a little mini one. And I'm actually going to label it different areas for different things. So in one area, I'm going to put sugar. One area, I'm going to put salt. One area, I'm going to put my penny. And one area, I'm going to put my Epsom salt. So let me see if I can find my Sharpie. So you guys can see my little mini pi 10. And you guys can use a normal size pi 10. I'm using a mini because it's easier for me to get onto my desktop and my screen so I can actually show you guys what you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to take the paper that I saved for everything, and then I'm going to go through the process of weighing some more samples. But before I do that, I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to divide up my pi 10 into 4 quadrants. One, I'm going to put Epsom salt. One, I'm going to put baking soda. One, I'm going to put sugar. And the other one, I'm going to put my penny. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and weigh everything again. Start off with my penny, make sure that there's no change. So I put my paper for my penny onto the scale. I tare it. Okay, so I get 2.53 this time. I take my penny and I'm going to put it in the area for the penny. Okay. So let me clean up my spatula. Okay. So now on my spatula, okay. So I'm going to start off with my sugar again. Okay, I'm gonna make sure it's tiered. Then I'm gonna add my sugar. And again, we're gonna add a half a gram. So 0.5 grams. Okay. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pour my sugar in the corner where I have sugar written. Try to keep it separated just in case I knock things over. Okay. Clean my spatula. Okay, so now I'm going to do the Epsom salt. Okay, make sure it's tiered. Okay, so my Epsom salt is ready. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to do my baking soda. Let me clean my spatula. Okay, so I have my baking soda. It's perfect. There we go. Okay, so I have my baking soda. Again, half of a gram. And then I'm just going to pour that where it says baking soda. Okay. So you're going to take your pie tin and you're actually going to put this guy on the stove. And so you're going to want to get a glove or a towel so that you can handle your pie tin so that things don't burn up too bad. Okay, so let me go grab mine. You have an oven mitt. Since I'm notorious for making a huge mess in the kitchen and always trying to burn my hands, so I got a really serious oven mitt. So, okay. So since I'm in the lab, I'm actually going to be using a hot plate instead. So I'm going to set up my hot plate in front of the camera on my computer. Give myself some room. Okay, can you guys see the hot plate? So I'm going to go ahead and put my samples onto my hot plate. You guys are going to go ahead and put it onto your stove. Okay, so you want to make sure you have your oven mitt ready to kind of take it off. So you want to turn off your stove, and you can actually let it cool off on the stove. So then that way you're not having to remove something that's hot. But what we're going to do is we're going to keep it running for a little bit to see if we get things to melt. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my hot plate. Okay, so this is the sugar, this is the baking soda, this is the Epsom salt, and this is the penny. So, and I want documentation. I'm going to take a couple of pictures or a little video. So I'm already getting sizzling going on with one of the samples. So I'm going to let it stay on a hot temperature for about 3 minutes, and then I'm going to record the observations. So I'm at 2.5 right now. You can start to see a little bit of smoke coming on one of them. Okay, so after 3 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. I'm going to let it cool back down. And I'm going to take my observations. I have a glass stir rod in the lab. You guys probably don't have that at home. But I can actually use that to sit there and kind of poke and prod at things. See if I notice anything else going on. Okay, so that's 2 sets of experiments. One, we add water to things. One, we just heated them directly onto a scale. So now what we're going to do is we have the baking soda that we had mixing. That we just had sitting around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that baking soda, I'm going to take my other tube, and I'm going to make sure it's completely mixed or evenly distributed between the solution. I'm going to slide my hot plate over so I'm not going to burn myself or my computer, so I can move on to the next set of experiments. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to make sure that it's evenly distributed, hopefully without spilling too much of my solution. And then I'm going to take half of it and put it into the other conical tube. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is one of them, I'm going to put Epsom salt in, and one of them I'm going to put sugar in. Okay, so we know that in both of these there's baking soda. So I'm going to go ahead and get my scale out again. Sugar. So I'm going to weigh a half a gram of sugar. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and add the sugar to the one that says sugar. Okay, I'm going to mix it. Let it sit for a little bit. And then I'm going to try to bring it back up to the 5 mils with my water. Oops. Okay. Okay. I'll let that sit for a minute. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the Epsom salt. I need to clean up my spatula. I'll be right back. Oops. Okay. So let me tear. And I'll add my Epsom salt. Let's see. Okay, so I added my Epsom salt to the solution. I'm going to mix it. Then I'm going to bring it up to 5 mils. Okay, bring it up to 5 mils. And then continue to mix them. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see. Okay. And so I'm going to record my observations. I'm going to let it sit for a little bit, and then I'm going to mix, see what happens. Okay. Okay, so those are the experiments that you guys can do at home. Now I'm going to do a couple of them as demos for you guys. So I want you guys to record the observations that you guys see from the screen that I do. So let me go get everything that I need for that. Now, because I am in the lab, I'm actually going to use distilled water because we will get better results than if we used tap water. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the electroconductivity. Okay, so we have a metal in our penny. Our penny has changed quite a different color. Okay. I also have some ethanol. Ethanol would be a covalently bonded compound. We're going to have water with some sugar in it. We're going to have water with some baking soda in it. And we're going to have some water with some Epsom salt in it. And then we're just going to have some water. I basically have a battery connected to an LED. You guys see my LED? Now, right now, the battery isn't fully connected. We have a break in the wire. Since we have a break in the wire, we're not getting any light to the LED. Okay, so you see no break in the wire, no LED. Okay, so if I connect those two wires together, I get a signal and I get light if they're connected together. If they're apart, no light. Together, light. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect them together using the penny. So I'm going to have the penny touching both of them, and we're going to see if there's light. Okay. Let's see. Ready? Look at that light. So they're both touching the penny at different ends. This one over here. This one is over here. Okay. We're able to get light. So that tells me that metallic bonds allow the conductivity of electricity. Okay. So we're going to try the same thing with water. Now, this is distilled water. This is not deionized water. So I'm going to stick both electrodes in the water. Okay. And as you can see, there is no conductivity. Okay. So we get no light. Now again, clean this up. If I put the wire together, there's conductivity. So then that tells me that water isn't able to conduct electricity like in the case of the metallic bond. Water is a covalently bonded compound. It's not able to conduct electricity, unlike the metal, which is. Okay. Sorry, I'm just all tangled up here. So you guys can see metal's able to do it. Okay, where the water isn't. Okay, so now, so again, that was water. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add, this is water right now, I'm going to add Epsom salt to my water. Okay, so the chemical formula for Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. So magnesium sulfate is an ionic compound. And so when we put it in water, the ions are able to sit there and separate from each other. We'll talk about that in class. So if I stick them into the ionic compound solution, magnesium sulfate, we get light. No light, light. Okay, so those ions allow the conductivity of electricity. Okay, so this was the Epsom salt that I cooked earlier. So if I put my electrode in those, you'll see there's no light. So when the ions are together, that plus and minus charge are together in a solid form, they don't conduct electricity. So we're not able to get electricity conducted. Okay, so we're going to try the same thing with the baking soda. So here we have the baking soda that was cooked. So the baking soda doesn't conduct electricity, although the aluminum does, but the baking soda doesn't. Okay. So if I put the baking soda into solution, so again, baking soda. So again, we get light. No light. When we put it in solution, we get light. Okay. So baking soda is called sodium bicarbonate. So it is also an ionic compound. So it's able to also conduct electricity. But when it was in a solid form, we're not able to get any conductivity. Or when it's together, no conductivity. Okay. So our last case is going to be sugar. So sugar is a covalently bonded compound. So we would expect it not to conduct electricity. That's exactly what we see. No electricity. Okay. And last, I'm going to use ethanol. Ethanol is also a covalently bonded compound. As we stick it in, there is no electricity conducted. Let's see. Okay. So again, if we connect the wires together, we're able to see that there's conductivity. Okay. So that's the experiments for today. So what you're going to do, there are going to be a set of questions for you guys to answer for the lab regarding conductivity based upon what you guys saw. You guys have to complete the lab itself with the penny, the sugar, and the Epsom salt and the baking soda. That's both with water and then also dry. And you want to record those results, okay? And there are going to be questions that you guys have to answer for the lab as well too. So hopefully you guys will be able to sit there and repeat this experiment without any problems. I'll be putting the procedures up so that you guys can actually do it yourselves. And I will see you guys on Thursday for lecture. You guys will have another test that'll be popping up here shortly. So you guys need to make sure that you guys are staying on top of the material because you don't want to be caught too far behind. Okay, you need to start making sure that you're caught up. I'm going to start sending emails to individuals that have not done at least the first exam. So I'm getting ready, as I said, putting up the next exam, and I'll be putting up the third exam as well too. Okay, so they'll all be going up at the end of by the end of next week. This week, and you'll have the next exam. By the end of next week, we'll have the third exam, and then I'll be putting up the last exam. So if there are any questions, I have office hours on Thursday from 9 to 11 p.m. 9 to 11 a.m. And then I have office hours on Friday from 1:30 to 3:30. So hopefully everything is going well. And then I will see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.